How do you all do? And welcome to A Link to the Past Randomizer. Here we are with Qualifier number 2. And on this one, we have the matchup between Jet082 and P-Train. And joining me for this race is Star X. How's everybody doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing all right. So this here is a rematch of the 2019 quarterfinals where Jet was on his path to a tournament win, and P-Train was right there in the way. And so yesterday was quite a fun-filled day if you missed qualifier number 1. I think I'll let my commentary partner do the talk about that one since they were on the call for that. Or not on the call, but they played it.
A beautiful mimic clip seed with both Eastern and Pod pendant, and our lucky go mode item, the bow, being locked inside pendant pod.
Absolutely. The race is on. Both of these runners are going to start off over at the Sanctuary as we get 20 rupees inside of that chest right now and make our way over towards Kakariko Village on SpeedGaming on this wonderful second day of the qualifiers, 18 and all, and 5 races to play. And of course, the top 128 make it into the main body of the tournament where things get really, really interesting as far as that is concerned.
Yes, a bit of change compared to last year's group stage.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about more of the things coming up here as we're about ready to get one of our more significant checks, and this will be a simultaneous check of the Lumberjack Ledge, and it just turns out to be 3 bombs. We are going to be walking away from that.
Yes, no chance to take here in a qualifier seed. You just want to make sure that doesn't end up costing you time later down the line.
So when we play these kind of qualifiers, the big thing here is you want to be able to go fast. And really what it comes down to is how fast can you wind up doing the checks that you need to make? Because that's going to be one of the bigger differences here. And a lot of runners, they're going to be making some more riskier plays than you would otherwise consider otherwise.
Yeah, some people will try to go for isolated checks to try and make up some time if they think they can get away with it. But some players just go for a more conservative approach and just make sure they don't miss any check.
So as we make our way through this qualifier, a lot of the things we'll be watching out for is how fast does this seed get pieced together? Are there any major routing divergences, or does this seem like a more straightforward seed? Because if this turns out to be a straightforward seed, then that really kind of plays out interesting and when it comes to pairing up the C scores for this.
Yes, because for those who don't know, the score for the players is not calculated on their position as they finish the seed, rather kind of a relative to the mean of the top 5 times. Meaning, if it's a seed that goes really fast, points get dropped really fast from everyone else's score too.
So Jet is going round and around and around trying to get some rupees to make a purchase, and it does look like P-Train now has secured the funding needed in order to buy some explosives here in the world of Hyrule. Also, we did get our early map check, and the last thing you want to see is, especially after yesterday's qualifier, is Eastern Palace being a pendant, but it is a 1 in 7 chance that the Palace of Darkness turns out to be the other pendant.
Yeah, what are the chances of having back-to-backs, Eastern and Pod pendant seeds?
Well, yes, we say that, but then we, of course, end up with the big story of the 2020 qualifiers, or rather the 2021 qualifiers, which was Pendant Swamp all the time.
Pendant Swamp all the time, and if I remember correctly, Twice we've had a hammer in that pendant swamp.
All right, finally getting the checks here inside of the well. Jet's going to be finishing off these checks just to find out that the prize inside really wasn't worth the bomb, but it's still not a location you want to leave behind when it comes to a qualifier, because the idea is those locations that you leave behind, they could come back to really, really hurt you in this mode. We haven't even gotten into a big discussion about what this mode is. It's not necessarily, it's kind of open, but it's a modified open.
Yes, it's kind of a twist on the hard item pool setting, but we have a bunch, 48 to be exact, piece of heart that are replacing most of the junk items. So the players will be able to reach 20 hearts, but will still be stuck with the green mail, tempered sword max, and fighter shield.
They will be able to get silvers, which we did get to see in the qualifier yesterday, although not a lot of runners got to actually use that said bow. And the bows are not progressive too.
Yes, silver arrows being completely detached from the bow progression, so you will find both the bow and silver arrows in no particular order this time.
So we did catch something on this ledge, enough that P-Train wants to go back and go ahead and grab. I did not necessarily get to see it, but oh, it turns out to be the Titans mid, so we're just a Moon Pearl away from the Dark World access.
Yep, I was about to say he's gonna need some better gloves to grab that, but there they are.
Jet now seeing the Titans mids right there, going to go ahead and grab those, as we do see P-Train coming over. And this will be another start here at the Sanctuary, because we're going to be checking the back 3 of Escape. Map check for P-Train. Red pendant up at the Hera. Blue pendant turns out to be Eastern, so the green pendant is the one that we're missing and is in the Dark World.
We still have no information about the red crystals, so both of them are going to be found in the Dark World when we do our map check.
We got our first bottle here in the back 3 of Escape, also the key, but that's all we find. P-Train's going to go now start at Link's house, and we'll make our way toward probably the wealth of items that are on the South Shore. Get another piece of heart right there. Somebody asking about when the last time we actually had the bow and the silvers being separate items. I almost want to say that was, what, the first tournament back in 2017, the spring tournament. There's a piece of me that feels like by the time we got to the fall that... Actually, no, never mind. The bows were not separate at that point in time. Bows became separate, what, in version 29?
I don't think I was even around at that time, so I wouldn't know, but surely someone in the chat knows.
Bug catching that, 10 arrows, 10 arrows. Red rupee and reading device. And 300 rupees inside of the dam. And P-Train, the way that he's routing this, although he wants to be a little careful because those crabs do 2 hearts damage, the way that P-Train is routing this seems to believe that we're going to be going all the way to desert in this right now.
Yes, finding the book in Mini Moldorm Cave really helped him shape that route. And
Hi, Lamp.
There's our fire source, so
now
if we manage to find a weapon and hopefully the key is not on the torch in desert, we might see a first crystal here soon.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was starting to lean towards. That is the fact that we are just a weapon away now from having that ability to perhaps defeat the Lamos. Now, P-Train is thinking about the options, has just chose to save and quit, as opposed to actually making that push over towards the desert. Oh, that bomb missed for Jet. Another bomb that misses. Oh my goodness. There we go. One bomb remains. Thankfully gets us in.
Yeah, the mini Moldorm's really trolling Jet here and missed a few bombs left and right.
Nice tree pull there for P-Train on the tier 3 with the 20 rupees per times 4, that is. And so we're going to be seeing Jet and P-Train going in different directions. P-Train now checking the uncle area. And I did not see what that was. Okay, it was just a blue rupee because I had a little bit of a lag right there.
Yeah, a blue rupee and a piece of heart in the secret passage. Do P-Train go for the SKD? Looks like he is.
Yeah, since we're not saving and quitting, and you know that the only other thing that's out there is a map. I think the decision's made, although it does look like that P-Train is starting to accumulate some kills, knowing that the tier 3 pole is red rupees. Green Pendant, Swamp Palace. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we do know that we need to get that bow. We know we need to get that bow at some point in time before we get to Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, and having that information can really change routing-wise, because you know
That's beautiful.
that, yeah, that was a really beautiful room, but you know that you don't have 2 shot at a bow, because there's only 1 in the seed, so it may change how players see the rest of the seed.
So we now don't have a Mimiclip seed because we are going to have to see that bow at some point in time. But what we may end up with is a
hover
hookless.
seed. Yep, a beautiful hover seed could be in play here.
Oh, P-Train didn't get the bounce on the guard right there, which is unfortunate, and he needs to get him on this bomb, so he will go ahead and do it while he gets the bombs in the chest. That's actually not a bad reward in that chest, all things considering.
Probably had to get a refund on that kill.
Big Key and Compass, the first 2 here in Eastern. P-Train's gonna have the guard bother him, but thankfully the guard gets hit with that second pot, so therefore he's now gone out of the equation. P-Train setting him up for a Death Warp. We get ourselves a sword and Zelda's chest.
That sword could be huge. It's pretty far out of the way, being at the end of the escape sequence, but that also opens up the, as we said earlier, the Desert Palace play.
Our tracker is giving me grief because the way I just phrased things just a moment ago, and I realized at the second that that left my lips that that was not necessarily the best way of phrasing that. So we will get away from talking about that, but we have now seen both map and compass as well as the big key inside of this Eastern. So the Lamos are, not the Lamos, the Armos Knights are going to have an item. $20 rupees inside of the Dark Cross, so that sword. Pretty solid find for P-Train early. That desert might be beatable now.
Yep, you just need to know what lies on the torch right there.
And nothing in Eastern Jet's play comes up empty. know there are runners out there who absolutely will stay away from Eastern at all costs, and that is one of those reasons why, because when Eastern comes up empty, you just sunk a bunch of time. Now, the one thing that Jet picked up out of this is knowledge in regards to what is our green pendant, but I don't think that's really a prize at this stage.
It's surely nice to have that information, but clearly not worth the time sink that Eastern was.
50 rupees inside Agina's chest as Jet now makes his way over towards the uncle and associated other areas. And just as a note for people inquiring in chat, so the qualifiers work like this. There are 18 total qualifiers, and as such, you need to do a minimum of 5. Your top score and your lowest score will get removed out of your score. They will get negated or removed, that is, and the 3 remaining scores are what will get averaged together for whether or not you qualify. The top 128 averages will make the main part of the tournament. I have a feeling something's here, Star.
At this point, there are not a lot of checks left. If it's not here, it's probably up the mountain, would be my guess.
Good point. I forgot about the mountain.
At least we get a small key here, so we're at least going to get 2 checks.
Yep. If the big key is not one of these 2 checks, then we know we need to get the boots in order to defeat this dungeon. But the big key turns out to be there, so this is a beatable dungeon. Not as fast as P-Train's played there in that room. However, that was still a solid room there for Jet.
Yes, and there is still some time to be made back up on the second blue guard on the boomerang chest.
Oh yeah, because Jet had or rather P-Train had a rough go with that second guard. So qualifier number 2. And just as a reminder, this is not the only channel that has the qualifier. Was there something on the torch? No, there wasn't. Nothing that
only the compass, yeah.
Yeah, that's a much better room there for Jet. Gets the bombs as a refund. Big chest. There's our Moon Pearl. P-Train says, peace out.
Even though P-Train doesn't have the information yet for the green pendant, knowing that there's no more items in desert, it's really convenient to just come back when we go and clear Mire.
Yeah, because desert is... Oh, Jet, be careful. Down to a heart, and this green guard bothering him. Maybe part of that was to set up a death war, but still not necessarily what you'd want to do in that circumstance with that guard bothering you, because of all the things that can go wrong there. Now, just as a reminder, this is not the only channel that is doing a qualifier, as we do have a second stream going with Koi and TJ Maelstrom over on SpeedGaming 3. They're part of this field of 94 in this qualifier, all trying to make the tournament of 128. Some fresh new faces in this, some old faces, but a whole lot of fun going on here in qualifier number 2. After today, the next qualifier turns out to be, there's our 5-6 information. One of them was over at the Mire, yeah.
Yeah, Mire and TR are our 5-6 crystals.
That's interesting with those. So qualifier number 3 will be coming up after this on, let me see, not tomorrow, but on Wednesday. And that one is an early one. It's going to be 12 o'clock. Jet now heading over to Desert. And the big difference here between Jet and P-Train now comes down to that Eastern play.
Yes, that Eastern play really cost some time for Jet, but still, everything's possible. We still have a long way to go in this scene.
There's a lot more items that we need to find. This race is nowhere near over with. As P-Train now falls down into the first section of the Skull Woods. Got a small key in that first chest in that middle section. There's the big key, which helps out for at least getting to this big chest in the event that we don't find the 2 items in these next 2 checks. I often forget that you can do that.
Yeah, so do I, but we at least found one item. Nope. The second one's gonna be in the bag though, so we'll need to come back later on P-Train's side. Meanwhile, Jet's making his way through Desert Palace. Will be nice to see if he decides to peace out as well, or if he actually finishes the dungeon.
P-Train going through the Sea House. Sea House having a blue rupee. I take it we didn't see anything amazing on top of the bumper ledge.
Chat says 20, so... But Jet actually making the decision to finish Desert Palace on the first go, which is not a bad decision. Even though we're not going to be finding any more items in the back, at least it nets us a first crystal for the sea.
Fire rod found in the brewery. And we do know that there is an item out back, so that might give some incentive to check.
Oh, and there's the Samaria, the King of Samaria in the first chest of Thieves Town. But yeah, finding the fire rod where he did, P-Train also being in the area will probably just decide to go and finish the dungeon, especially since it's a crystal. There's no real reason in delaying it.
So one thing that's going to come into play here for Jet is that this fight against the Lamos without the fire rod is going to be a little bit slower compared to what P-Train's going to be able to do with that fire rod. And P-Train noping out after doing the first board check. We did see the Cane of Samaria there. So how many items remain inside that Thieves Town? And P-Train trying to get the 50-50 drop on the bushes here, considering the fact that he needs 2 of them for a check that's going to be coming up here in about a couple of minutes from now over at the Hype Cave. And you don't really want to spend your rupees when Zora is still outstanding, and also Palace of Darkness is outstanding, and wind up having to purchase the bombs for that pack of 30 for 100, which you only get to keep 10 of. Nice fight against the Lambos for Jet. Gets the first crystal on the board here in this match, and now is going to go ahead and start doing the Dark World exploration. P-Train getting a piece of heart from the Dig game.
Doing so on the very first dig, so really quick way to do it. And the RNG for that is obviously set the same for all players, so we'll see the same thing happen on Jet's screen shortly.
Yep, it can be anywhere between the first dig and the 30th dig to yield the item, as P-Train now makes a way over towards the Stumpy. Stumpy gives us, there's the hook shot. Okay, that's really good to see that the hook shot is not in a very, very hard to get to location.
Yep, pretty much on the way, so making that hover seed we talked about much less likely to happen, so a pretty big relief for players that can't actually hover.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you got to remember, is that something like this may not necessarily be a big deal for these 2 players, but when you're talking about a qualifier with 92 different runners in there, some people with some skill sets of various natures where they know how to do hovers and mold arm bounces, some runners do not know how to do that stuff. Getting something like the hookshot easily accessible is a pretty solid deal. Hype Cave turned out not to be quite as hype on this qualifier number 2, but P-Train is going to go ahead, finish off this Breadsmith, and then I wouldn't be surprised with a hookshot going up the mountain.
A lot more checks opened up there, so it could be a very, very powerful play to make.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't. If I was playing this one, that would be what my mind's going to head towards, is going up and fully clearing what we have up on the mountain.
Especially with early mitts and Moon Pearl and everything, it's a pretty good way to get that out of your mind and just continue on with your seed.
All right, Breadsmith. Reward for returning him back to his home is going to yield for P-Train 10 arrows. And seeing the save and quit right there immediately tells us that P-Train is not going to continue that chain and do the purple chest, but instead it's time to go up the mountain.
Yeah, P-Train having a little misclick right there, spawned back at the house instead of the sanctuary, but there he is. Happens to the best of us.
We all do that.
But here we are, making our way up the mountain with P-Train.
Checking the information about the 20 rupees up on the bumper ledge. As P-Train now heads up to the mountain, we'll save the old man, bring him back home, and then what do we do next? Now, we can't do Pendant Hera at this point in time. We have no access there. We need the mirror or the hammer in order to access that, and even there, do you really want to dive into a petted dungeon? That's a big question.
That is a pretty big question, especially Hera. But Hera can be quite quick with only 2 items and the hook shot. The players can just do a pretty neat glitch we call the Hera pot glitch. So it could be a very quick way to get 2 checks, but with the quantity of items that are all around the mountains, that's definitely not their priority right now.
Silver arrows on Spectacle Rock. And we do know we need that bow.
With those silver arrows locked behind the mirror, except if they do find it here in the mountain, I wouldn't see those 2 players coming back to get them.
I see them coming back to get them when it's time to go up to Turtle Rock. Now, if this game wants to give us a mirror now, I can see that being collected because the silver arrows will make a boss like Vitreous very, very trivial. Or less trivial, I guess, is the actual way of saying it.
That is, if the seed decides to give us any mirror at all, because with the Swan being a pendant, we might not see it for
That
the,
is
for the
a
whole seed.
very, very strong point, yes. We may not see that mirror. What do you do if that mirror turns out to be in Ganon's tower?
With having to go to do the whole mountain again, I wouldn't see those 2 players going out and trying to going to fetch the silver arrows.
And that is also a good point in chat by DJ Silvergun. If that mirror never shows up, then P-Train's decision to hold off leaving Desert until he does Misery Mire just becomes nullified.
Yeah, that would allow Jet to catch up some of the time lost by doing the Eastern Palace play.
Absolutely. But another thing that Jet's doing right at this point is completing this, or at least trying to complete this Thieves Town without the hammer, which can potentially cause an issue too. How many items in the first 4 did we find?
From what chat mentioned earlier, seems like we found 3 in the first 4 checks. So we might be safe doing it, but
Yep.
there's still the very possibility of having.
Savory UX is pointing out in chat, our tracker, that we've now seen all 4 items. So Jet is safe in doing this.
That's good. So meaning we'll probably see. In fact, we won't see what's in the big chest, but that is one of the risks of doing Thieves Town without the hammer, is that we might just leave an item in that big chest if we found the small key here.
And Jet is not even checking that chest right there. Now, this was not one of the 5-6 because I would almost want to check that chest if this was one of the 5-6s, because if that key is not in that chest next to the maiden, then that tells you a lot about this seed and what the Pyramid Fairy couldn't have, but that's not the case here.
That's because there's quite a logic behind the hammer in Thieves Town. A couple of checks locked.
Mirror.
There it is.
So that gives P-Train access here to another check that is to at least get into the left side to see what we have on the Ether Medallion. Whether or not P-Train chooses to go into Tower of Hera is a different question, but P-Train wants those silvers. But wow! I thought he was going to be talking to the ball.
So did I. Barely dodged it. Would have been here for like half an hour. That
I
ball
know.
talks so long.
Just a little bit of love right there on the Ether, and P-Train gets locked out of getting into the Tower of Hera. P-Train now inside of the Tower of Hera. This is a pendant dungeon. And Ice Rod!
Wow. At least this one isn't as far as the bow was on the last qualifier, but still, finding that that progression item inside a pendant dungeon, that's a classic.
Big key is vanilla here in this Tower of Hera. P-Train is opting to do this Hera pod to get around the requirement and hope that the second item is either in that 4th floor small chest or on Moldorm. There it is. P-Train's done.
Starting back at the house, are we going to see an Eastern play for P-Train? No. Oh, might we be going back to Ice Rod Cave?
Ice Rod Cave, and then afterwards we will be probably answering this with a trip to go see Zora.
With the amount of rupees the players have, Zora is a pretty good it's a pretty good detour, but one the players probably don't want to skip just in case there's an item there. It's one of the tricky parts of routing a qualifier is you don't want to get screwed by an item on Zora or Catfish or that one location that's completely out of the way.
And flippers are there.
Well, makes the Zora play much more logical, but what do you want?
So, the idea behind a qualifier, you really want to try to route things in a way that plays more defensively so that if an item becomes a one-off, it doesn't hurt you quite as much as if it would if it kind of got buried behind more things type of things, if you get put into different kind of paths. Which is why, you know, P-Train opted to go ahead and check this now, coupling it together with the Zora play. Now I can think of a place that we can go that, Bombos has been located, which will give us access to Turtle Rock once we find the hammer. Now, I can think of a place that we can go that we can't beat, but could be holding part of our answer.
I can see a couple of places we can actually go in and not beat, but right after Zora, maybe Ice could be a play.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. When have you ever seen Hammer and Ice?
Too often.
Exactly. Who's to say that we don't get that happening here? Jet checking the back of Skull Woods, another dungeon that can be beatable right now for Jet. It's crazy. 3 crystals Jet will have before Jet or P-Train even has his first. But the item knowledge is huge here for P-Train.
Definitely two different styles of thinking here. P-Train really going for the, as you said, the item knowledge, while Jet just goes through crystal dungeons after crystal dungeon.
Zora for 500 rupees. Oh, that's a logic too, thanks to that mirror. Another check opening up here for P-Train as Jet trying to take care of Mothula. This is a battle of patience.
Especially with only the fighter sword and fire rod to defend yourself, it's really a game of pretty much dodgeball with the spikes.
Ooh, that was closer with Mothula. Now, Jet's got to be careful. One more hit from Mothula, back to start. The spikes do 1 heart damage. Oh, that was close right there. This is, again, just battle of patience. There we go, got it.
Nicely done by Jet. Meanwhile, P-Train's heading back to the village. Probably going to check powder.
Trying to do this logical chain here. I just got powder thanks to Zora. Does this lead to what I need? And he's gonna say goodbye to his portal either way. Does this powder lead to something? What is Jacket over here? Bombs for that second item in Skull Woods P-Train. On your right, picking up. Oh, a piece of heart.
Yeah, and that's the end of that chain. But being in the area, I would see P-Train go back in Thieves Town and finish both Thieves Town and Skull Woods pretty quickly here.
Yeah, this would make a lot of sense, and then P-Train can do a second loop through, check things like K45. Now Jet has to go up to this mountain. Does not have the flippers just yet, so it's not even thinking about Ice Palace. But you've got to think that if the hammer turns out to be an Ice Palace, it's going to be very telling who dove ice early versus who waited it.
Yeah, it's a thing we can clearly see in the finishing times, whether or not someone made the right play at that moment, because it's going to be a big time difference.
P-Train not going into Thieves Town just yet. Is going to grab this purple chest. Lump this together with a K45 check. Probably also give us an idea of what is on the Bombos tablet with the addition of a sword. Jet seeing the silver arrows up on Spectacle Rock. K45. Just a piece of heart.
What I think is happening is P-Train really doesn't want to leave any one-offs or isolated checks unaccounted for. So we're really making sure he clears those before diving into Thieves Town that might not be in logic without hammer. Skullwoods that only has one item left, etc.
Don't forget to follow both of these runners who've gracefully allowed us to show their restream here on Speed Gaming, and also don't forget that there is a second stream going on right now over on Speed Gaming 3 featuring Koi and TJ Maelstrom. Go watch that restream as well. Watch both of them. Great commentators on both of them. What do you think, Star?
Yeah, pretty great race happening on that channel too. Great commentators, great racers. Watch both at the same time if you can. Why not?
P-Train continuing to try to follow this logic, and I have a feeling this is going to be a graveyard ledge check into a catfish over towards the pyramid ledge, and then the Palace of Darkness, which is not a dungeon that we can beat. We are missing 2 items in order to beat that dungeon. We still need several items to beat this seed. This is definitely not as jet as the first seed is. Sword upgrade, graveyard ledge.
Hopefully that doesn't trip up too many people, because that's one check people tend to keep up for last. But yeah, good find here by P-Train. Surely going to speed up the dungeon clearings for later.
Train now making a way over towards the catfish area. Trying to use the hook shot in order to quicken up the movement. That personally is a skill that is so underappreciated. Is really only exploited in Randomizer, because you have the boots by the time you get the hook shot in vanilla. It's just how much you can use the hook shot to quicken up your movement.
Yeah, it's a skill I don't personally have much of, but really both players taking full advantage of that hook shot to make traversing the overworld faster.
Absolutely, and you notice that there are runners who will be thinking about things like that. Jet getting the mirror. Now, Jet needs to go into the Tower of Hera. That ice rod is an important part of this component right now, and it would be rough if Jet leaves that behind. But Jet may also be thinking, I dove Eastern, got absolutely nothing out of it. Do I really want to go into another pendant dungeon at this point? So that is probably weighing at Jet's mind at this time. Let's see. He is going to pull out the book, check the medallion. The way that he's got this portal leads me to believe that he will go into the Tower of Hera next.
There he is.
Pyramid check here for P-Train. Flute.
That's a big one, and that's a far one. Since we don't have the hammer yet, that check is far from our potential start point in the Dark World.
All right, P-Train continuing the movement over here to the Palace of Darkness. That flute doesn't do much to help us get to the Palace of Darkness faster, because you need a hammer if you flute to 5. So you might as well continue on this path while you're over here, see if the hammer or the bow shows up. Oh, that's right. P-Train has not checked Sahasrahla yet for the back 3.
Nothing of value that we know, because Jet did those checked a while back. But, there you go, P-Train getting the 3 items and getting back out.
Jet winding up choosing to go through this tile room, which is a safe play, but we know is not necessary based on what P-Train found up on the 4th floor. So P-Train now getting ready to go into the Palace of Darkness, 110 rupees, get Kiki to the door, have Kiki unlock the door, and now we're going to have some fun with this Palace of Darkness. Shooter Room, what do you think Shooter Room's going to have? Do you think it's going to have a key?
Oof. Could be the bow. The bow would be borderline awful. But that would unlock 2 more checks for P-Train if it does happen to be there.
And there is a piece of heart. We are immediately bow blocked inside of this Palace of Darkness. P-Train is opting to continue inside of this dungeon. Now, he's going to try to pull off the Mimic Clip here, because he does not have a potion in the bottle, just has a fairy in the bottle, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Picked up the fairy when he did Waterfall Fairy.
So I guess we will be seeing a Mimic Clip after all. Now, for P-Train, you're really hoping that this turns out to be the location of the hammer, because you know the bow can't be here.
P-Train going for what we call bufferless Mimic Clip. It's a fairly complicated glitch in terms of execution, but was missing maybe a couple of pixels. Yeah.
And you see Jet buying a potion. And P-Train, beautiful movement there to get the Mimic out of there. So that tells me that Jet's planning on going into the Palace of Darkness soon as well.
Yep, having that potion will allow Jet to do the same 2 checks as P-Train is doing right now, and unlock more of the dungeon, as there are 2 small keys on the right side.
And answering a comment in chat, they switched bows to non-progressive. That's right. In this tournament, the bows are non-progressive. As you can see, P-Train already has the silver. So too does Jet. They were on top of Spectacle Rock. So that means there is a bow out there. And we know it can't be here in the Palace of Darkness.
Finding a progression item in the back of Pod would really narrow down where the bow can be for P-Train.
Jet about to pick up that Master Sword. Mushroom. That is spicy. Now we do have the flute, which means getting to 2 is a little easier. Nice current jump there for Jet without the flippers.
Yep, allows him to cross over without having the flippers. Just a beautiful setup right there.
Booch! Oh! Big find.
That's going to speed things up.
And we know the boots can't lead to the bow. Nothing that P-Train is doing inside of this dungeon can lead to the bow. but they could lead to the hammer. Hammer's kind of a bigger deal at this point. Taking a look at the inventory, making sure that he has not pulled up all the items. Was hoping maybe to find the hammer there. It was not to be the case.
Yeah, looks like there will be one item left on Helmazar King.
So if you're a runner who does this right now, you've got to be thinking, you've got to remind yourself that the bow cannot be behind the boots. What we're about to find in King's Tomb, what we're about to find in the Bonk Rocks cannot be the bow. Just a little bit of love for P-Train. Jet walking the long way around, not wanting to give up his portal because of how much effort he got to get here. Just a little bit of love there as well.
Yeah, and with the knowledge that the flute is on Pyramid Ledge, Jet losing his portal here would be a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. It is also unfortunate the fact that Jet's not going to be able to check the waterfall. We know that's nothing consequential there. It's just the fact that if Jet comes back, that's going to be a time loss. But Jet needs to get to that flute. It's on the Pyramid Ledge. Needs to at least consider going into the Palace of Darkness. Those boots are a speed booster. You need that. Well, speaking of speed booster, that's who Jet's playing as, the Sprite of Samus. Mushroom check here for P-Train. We know that this cannot lead to the bow, as mentioned before. But this is the other big. Does this give me something huge? No.
Not really, only 20 rupees for the mushroom. Not a bad price, but definitely not what the player wanted.
Now we check the flute combined with the mitts and get ourselves over to the Mire area.
And
Bombos is the requirement to get into Misery Mire.
So Mire is completable for P-Train. We'll probably...
Hammer
There's the
time!
hammer.
Now, where was that Bombos once again? It was... Where was it? It was on Hobo, yeah. So those were flipper blocked. Looks like Jet's going, or rather P-Train's going to be going to complete a few dungeons now. That we pick up the hammer, now we can consider finishing off places like Thieves Town and Skull Woods. This 3-0 crystal lead that Jet has is not going to last for much longer.
That lead is going to melt pretty fast, especially with P-Train having access to more crystals than Jet has.
Somebody asking in chat, can Bo be on the ped? The answer is that is simply no. Eastern being a pendant, you need to have the bow in order to get to the Armos Knights.
And with the knowledge we have right now, we can for sure know that, as it was for yesterday's qualifier, the bow is our go mode item.
But this time we absolutely need the bow, as opposed to last time around, the bow, it was kind of needed, but you could get away with it. If you didn't have it, that is.
No cheating around it this time. not really cheating, but
Yeah, I don't think you really want to use the word cheating in that
yeah,
regards, but no
no,
mimic
no,
clipping
no
around it
working
this
around
time
it
around.
this time. Sorry.
All right, Mothula fight here for Patreon is going to be a little bit easier than what we saw from Jet, considering the fact that it's Master Sword, and that is a dead Mothula. P-Train gets his first crystal at the 59-minute mark. So where do you think this bow is?
We were talking a lot about Ice Palace having the hammer earlier. Could very well have the bow. So I'm placing my bets on Ice Palace.
Jack picking up the mushroom. The boots that P-Train has will be coming up in Harmless Hellway. I am going to actually put in a thought here, Starx, and I'm going to say that this is going to be in Misery Mire. That's my guess.
Pretty good guess. I mean, we still have a lot of checks available between all the dungeons we have access to right now, so we might be here for a while, but let's hope for both players that the bow isn't so far out.
One of the worst places that it could be is Left Side Swamp.
Left side of Pendant Swamp would be a pretty harsh location. So would Green Pendant.
Yeah, but you're more tempted to defeat Argus, considering the fact that it is Green Pendant, than you would be Left Side Swamp. Jed leaving the Palace of Darkness after getting the boots, getting everything that he possibly could get inside. And now plans on checking some of the boot locations. Again, the same thing that we saw from P-Train. And then we'll race over towards the village to activate the flute.
Both players routing slowly converging here towards the end. Still that Bombo's missing on Jet's side though.
Bombos and the flippers. And the flippers Jet could easily get should he flute to 8. But I'm getting a little worried about the hobo and the fact that Jet could be, based on the route, making that a one-off. And anybody who plays Link to the Past Randomizer, they know one-offs can be very, very dangerous in this game, in this tournament mode.
Coming up on the blind fight.
Jack going back into the Dark World. Now, I think this is probably a check of the powder and such.
Powder and maybe purple chest.
Purple chest, yeah.
Speaking of one-offs, P-Train definitely leaving one check out in the village in Hammer Pegs.
Yep. And for both of the runners, that's going to be a one-off. Here is the Ice Palace play for P-Train. This is going to be a blink and you'll miss this, but we are still going to try to see if we can't locate the 3 items inside. P-Train swapping on over to the handy-dandy hook shot. After a few tries, finally gets the big key. Choose. Come out of that chest. So, I think chat's already starting to debate this. Where would you go after this, Starks? Would you go to Misery Mire or would you go to Turtle Rock? Never mind, there's the bow! So at 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 7 seconds, P-Train, the first of these 2 runners into...
Go mode.
Absolutely.
So yeah, at that point, having the go, I just go clear Mire and Desert, then head up the mountain for a single trip. But I think even without the bow, that would have been my play.
Yeah, I think I couldn't really blame you for wanting to make that play, but this now is made a whole lot more easier by the spawning of that bow. And it's crazy here, at the time that it took for us to get into go mode here, we already had, what, 3 finishers in the qualifier yesterday?
3 or 4, yes.
I mean, Ravis absolutely wrecked it with a 58. Unbelievable.
Oh, and look at Jet's play.
This is bad and this is good at the same time.
Bombos is going to come up really clutch for Jet.
The bombos will be nice. I'm just hoping that Jet doesn't get the bombos. Oh wait, he will... Well, if he floats to 8, if he gets that and be like, oh, okay, realizes that that means that that can't be there, and goes in and gets the bow, that's really telling at that point, because that means it's only so many places where those flippers can be.
Yeah, but if Jet decides
actually, never mind.
Go in ice, then that's
if he goes into ice, that's it. He's in go mode.
Yeah, that's going to be go mode for Jet also.
And that's exactly where he's going. We've got a race, friends. We've got a race.
We've got a race. Just as P-Train completely deletes his previous 3 crystal deficit, Jet heads up in ice and is going to find his go mode soon.
Yeah, because we don't need to go into Swamp Palace where the flippers are 100% needed. Now, all we need to do is the big difference between these two. P-Train still needs to go and defeat the Lambos out of Desert Palace, but that's just a small minor trip around. There's the big key for Jet.
A pretty small detour considering both players have the silvers and or fire rod to deal with. Jet didn't have that at the time, so that play is going to advantage P-Train a bit more.
Jet doesn't know it, but he's an icebreaker away from getting into go mode. And this was only a couple of minutes after P-Train got into go mode. There it is. And there is the bow for Jet. Both of these runners now in go mode. In Qualifier number 2 here on Speed Gaming. How about you pull up a multi? Watch this together with the other qualifier that's going on right now over on Speed Gaming 3 with Koi and TJ Maelstrom. And this race is really, really close. And it's going to come down to execution. Those silver arrows will work very nice for what we've got coming up next with the Vitreous fight after P-Train gets done with this Palace of Darkness.
Yeah, and also later down the line, not that those players need them for Ganon, but they significantly speed up the fight, especially when you're only when you only have the Master Sword.
Maybe we find a sword in the GT. Oh, Jet getting coaxed here out the corner. Right now, I would give the edge slightly to P-Train. This is unfortunate for Jet, especially with the Master Sword. Might think about going to the hammer for tempered sword damage, but it's got those puffs kind of nicely contained at this point. There we go. There's the third one down. So Jet still needs to go into the Palace of Darkness, finish that dungeon off. P-Train still needs to go into Desert, finish that dungeon off. That's where the difference is at this stage. 4 crystals apiece for both of these runners now. And you remember when it was 3-0?
Yeah, that's in the past now.
This is a link to the past. Thank you for laughing at that.
I don't know if I should have.
It makes me feel better that you did. We're going to have simultaneous checks of this Misery Mire, all because Jet goes here first before going into the Palace of Darkness. And don't forget, we got more tournament action coming up here. Qualifier number 3 coming up Wednesday at 12:10 p.m. Eastern, 9:10 a.m. Pacific time, over 6:10 p.m. summer time over in the Central European time zone. Gonna be a little bit of fun here. Qualifier number 3. Is this a Godmire? We don't know yet.
Still has one more chance to a Gunmire for those players.
Godmire, what's up? B-Train running on down. Looks like Jet's not even worried about the magic at this point in time. B-Train setting up Spooky. Looks like Jet trying to set up Spooky. A little bit insecure about his setup there for just a moment. Had to redo it a couple of times. P-Train gets the switch to go, but made a goof because forgot I don't need to do it for this first room.
Yet we never flipped the switch. up on the first floor. So, and Jet making up a bit of time here.
P-Train completes the second needed spooky. Jet completing the second needed spooky. They're going to be on Vitreous, both together. Silver arrows out for both of these runners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and another 2. Beautiful silver kill for both of these runners. P-Train done, Jet done. P-Train's got to go to Desert. Jet's got to go to the Palace of Darkness. Then we will be caught up for the run to Turtle Rock.
A slight edge to P-Train right now for only having to do the back of Desert while we're pretty close by, saving a flute to 5. But a really great catch-up for Jet with the Hobo and Ice play.
Yeah, because B-Train is going to only need to do 1 Dark World transition. Jet's going to need to do 3 of them. Because here's number 2 for Jet, getting into the Dark World to head into the Palace of Darkness. And then another one after he is done with this Palace of Darkness to go up to the Dark World, or to the mountain again. So P-Train is going to be probably at the Lambo by the time we see Jet getting into the main lobby of the Palace of Darkness.
Or even before, maybe not before Jet gets into the Palace of Darkness proper, but...
Yeah, P-Train's gonna get to the Lambos by the time Jet's in the lobby. P-Train just has to wait for this wall to move, and there is the wall. It's done moving, and there we go. P-Train against the Lambos, silver arrows. This will be a much faster fight than what we saw from Jet, who tried to do it with the fighter sword earlier. 1, 2, and 3. Done is P-Train. Off to Turtle Rock we go. Is there another match after this? The next thing coming up here on Speed Gaming and Speed Gaming 3 will be the Zelda 1 Randomizer tournament at 10 p.m. Next up, for the Link to the Past Randomizer tournament, Qualifier number 3 will be on Wednesday after a day off tomorrow. 12 o'clock is when the race begins. So we now get to measure the length that P-Train is ahead. And this race is not done and over with yet. GT could play a role in this.
Yeah, GT routing could very well still swing things Jet's way.
I am surprised that Mr. Drossi1, who is the organizer of a lot of these point predictions here on Speed Gaming, hasn't thrown in that point prediction asking where this GT Big Key's going to be, because we're getting close to that point, and now would be a good time to give people a few minutes to set things up. I am surprised that Jet's not going to the silver arrows for this fight here against the Helmastar, taking a little extra time. But it is done. Has switched over to the mirror.
For those measuring the time difference between the players, P-Train entering TR at 1:17:41. So we might see maybe a minute and a half time difference by the time Jet gets there.
Yep, this is P-Train's lead. Does P-Train lead the race as a whole? We don't know. We're not keeping an eye on those race results until one of these two have crossed the finish line.
Yeah, this is a race within a race. There are 94, I think you mentioned earlier?
94, correct.
94 players in this race, so P-Train might very well be ahead here, but behind overall, but we won't know until it ends.
Getting a little bit of grief for Drosy for me shouting out on the point predictions at this point in time, but get those predictions in. The status of the Ganon's Tower Big Key, while P-Train is inside of this Turtle Rock. How would you feel if you're in this race right now, Star? I know you mentioned about being in qualifier number 1 yourself. How would you feel at this point, an hour 19 in, knowing that what we know about this run?
I don't know if I would feel great, honestly. Now we're 19 in, is for a good chunk of races the time where people actually start finishing and set up the part time. So we'll see what happens later on. But yeah, that bow placement was a bit weird.
So you feel like the bow would be the thing that would be tricking a lot of runners in this mode here of the 94 that are running?
The bow could very well be something that trips up people. Accessible relatively early with the Sumerian Thieves down.
True. That is true. I would like to take that a little bit further. I think for me, the question mark would be about the Master Sword being at Graveyard Ledge, although the seed kind of gave you a way to get over there because of the fact that you did need to go to the pyramid to get the flute to get to the hammer. So there's that. But I'm thinking the Master Sword could very well be one of the things that does trip people up, because we haven't seen another sword yet.
Indeed. The fact is, there is still 2 more swords, even though we're capped at the tempered level. There are 2 more available swords in the seed, so we might still find one on the way.
And we very well could. Now, if it does turn out that the other 2 swords are in nasty locations, then there's that. Jet having a little bit of an issue with the chain chomps. We do see Ether here on Laser Bridge. We do see the keys, so we are not going to see what's in that 4th and final chest. Oh no, P-Train is, in case it is a sword, but it does turn out to be just a boomerang, which actually is not a bad thing to find, because that will make, if you go left side GT, a little bit easier.
Yeah, a couple of NMG strats for switches and stuff with the boomerang and hookshot combo.
And we do know that both of these runners are very proficient in their NMG strats. And as we mentioned before, this is a rematch of the 2019 quarterfinals. Jet on his way to the championship that year. Nice menu switching over there for P-Train on that final hit. It's going to go ahead and do a couple of Master Sword slashes while he can't switch over to the hammer. At this point in time, just might as well just continue to slash it. Jet still having some issues here. This Turtle Rock has been giving Jet the business.
P-Train already switching to the hook shot for the hook speed setup, getting out of TR.
It's also amazing to see how much setup you see these runners do versus some runners who just wait until like they finally leave the dungeon. Oh, that's right, I got to head over to that item. But we are now at 7 crystals, which means we're going into Ganon's Tower, which means there's numbers flying in chat. Star, why is there numbers in chat?
I guess would be the GT Big Key guessing game. So anything between 1 and 22 is a fair game. Where in what chest or check, if it's the torch, will we find the GT Big Key? What do you think?
Number 9 is my guess.
any whole number between 1 and 22. Thank you, Drosy. But my guess would go towards maybe, let's say 15.
Alrighty, P-Train heading over straight left. Looks like we're going to be doing the Dark Magician type of setup. Jet's doing... Oh, sword! There we go, man! Yeah, tempered sword for P-Train on the torch. That is a massive find.
Yeah, and one people could very well look over if the key happens to be right side and they do make the right side play first.
What was that small magic that we just saw?
That is the replacement item for half magic, as this one is not available in the current item pool.
Similar to how the replacement was in the SpeedGaming Live 2021 setup. As we do see P-Train now going to the right-hand side. Jet finished trying to fight off against this Trine X. So I guess at this point in time, that sword concern of mine isn't quite as much, given the fact that there will be probably a few runners who did skip out on that graveyard ledge. They'll be bailed out by that sword on the torch.
Yeah, they will, but still, P-Train must be feeling pretty good about having tempered just to speed up that cannon fight once again.
11 checks down. P-Train coming up empty on the right side of GT. We did see a green rupee. Now, that does not necessarily mean anything, does it? Or does it? A green 20 takes the place of what?
A sword. If I remember correctly, the fourth sword is the only item that's replaced by a green 20 in our item pool setup.
And these are good things to know. So that means that if you come to GT with a fighter sword and you do Dark Magician, you will have a tempered sword.
Yeah, so that sword on Graveyard Lead, a lot less worrying now, but still help our players clear the dungeons a little bit faster while they could.
Alrighty, so we now will come over here to the randomizer room. And it's been 4 years of tournaments. We know why this is called the randomizer room. Still no big key to be found, which means it's now in one of 5 possible locations. And you don't want to think about the 5th.
Oh, no, you don't.
Technically 6, by the way, but who's counting? I forgot about Bob.
Yeah, one in Bob's chest, 3 behind Ice Armos. There's the tile room after that.
We don't talk about the tile room. Alright, P-Train. Holy wow!
I didn't know about that setup. Not that I'm going to pull this up anytime soon, but that was pretty clean.
Yes, it was. Number 20 turns out to be our big key over in the top left corner of the behind Armos. And so therefore, if you pick number 20, congratulations, you win the love and respect of our resident giraffe of the Link to the Past randomizer community, Herfy Durfy. Congratulations.
disposing of the mimics the correct way this time around. Especially easy with the silver arrows. But up to the gauntlet we go.
And so, climbing the gauntlet here, this is still pretty close between these two, but P-Train does have a definitive lead at this point. Probably about, what you would say, 2 minutes maximum?
About a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah, 1:29:10 was when P-Train started the gauntlet. Mentioned Herfy Durfy just a moment ago. Big shout outs to the crew over there at the Go Mode Podcast. Been long-time supporters of the Link to the Past Randomizer community, with the podcast dedicated towards all things Link to the Past. You know, it's good if you listen to. If you haven't checked out the Go Mode Podcast, be sure to do so. There's Jet's Big Key, and now Lamos for P-Train. 1 miss, 2 miss, and... well, didn't even try the third. Regain your composure, and better free throw shooting than a couple of those NCAA teams. That won't go mentioned. Just as a reminder, stay tuned because coming up after this, we do have Zelda 1 Randomizer with the 2022 tournament going on over there. Should be a fun match coming up here on SpeedGaming. And more Link to the Past Randomizer coming up tomorrow with the daily race, and then coming back on Wednesday with the tournament. Qualifier number 3 at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Central European Time. And you know, one of the things that's really given P-Train the advantage over Jet, now we did see a little bit of difficulty at execution for Jet, but one of the bigger things is that Eastern dive that P-Train never made.
Yeah, that one early play that really cost Jet some time. Managed to grab some back with the play for Bombos and the bow and eyes, but still that one play really cost some time.
Nice kill for the Moldorm for P-Train. Now, I don't have the race room open. I am going to guess, just based on how everything in this seat is worked out, that P-Train, should we not have any issues coming up here in the final stretch of this game, probably 11th or 12th place, maybe?
Well, I do happen to have the race room open on my second monitor, so I won't tell. I won't spoil the fun for everyone
we'll
else,
look at those results when we get the first finisher here on the screen. As Aga 2 against P-Train. The Battle of Geometry comes true for P-Train. And now we're off to see Ganon for the final part of this run. By the way, shoutouts to the festive mode that just came out in preparation for this Friday. Also, yeah. P-Train currently with the bat sitting underneath. I'm going to assume that we are having an OBS issue here with P-Train as Jet finishes off with the Moldorm 2 fight.
Nope, and we're back.
I guess we're back. Anyways, there's the Ganon fight, in a way.
Shout out to that beautiful Windows 9.5 setup P-Train has.
Yeah, I know. That's an awesome effect. P-Train's done a lot of work to get that going. Oh, that's an unfortunate cycle there for Aga 2 for Jet. And there it is. P-Train comes across. Finishes off with the Ganon fight. Get your GGs in the chat.
P-Train joining us right now. We might wait until Jet's done with his Ganon fight for the interview proper, but P-Train finishing 6th overall with an official time of 1:34:35.
Yeah, my current race time is crashed, so we'll go ahead and see this fight for Ganon for Jet. Who were the top 5?
Top 5, we had Skelly at 1:23:44, Zelda Disson at 1:29:27, Hydropower at 1:30:21, Matt7898 at 1:30:39, and Telethar at 1:32:03.
Yeah, GG's to all the finishers right now. Yeah, there it is for Jet. All right, so
GG's
let's go
to
ahead
Jet.
and mention first of all that Jet finished with a time of 1:36:30, which was good for 9th place. So we had the 6th place and the 9th place on the restream for today. Jay Meisher was in 7th with a 1:35:07, and 1:36:10 was the time for Average Frustrated Gamer. And so GG with everybody here. P-Train, your thoughts?
Yeah, first off, GG Jet. Good race.
Hey, GG, we kept it close, it looks like.
Yeah. I actually was feeling really bad about this one, particularly after the mirror. Mirror did not unlock anything substantial for me. I think it was just, Graveyard Ledge and K45. So after that, I didn't really like going to Bolus Pendant Eastern. So I decided, let's clean up Ice Rod Cave, found flippers. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, and it's pod access. But before I made that play, I thought late game powder was going to be huge because money was so tight at the beginning. That was garbage. K45 was garbage. Purple Chest was garbage. So yeah, by the time I finally got to pod and then saw it was bow locked, even with the boots, I still felt like I had sunk so much time in with the mirror that it wasn't going to be worth it. I'm quite shocked to get a top 10 finish on this one. I thought my routing was not that great on this one.
Yeah, you saw what I said in regards to what place I thought you were going to be finishing in based on what we knew about this seed, but me having the race room completely closed up until you had finished. So I guess, yeah, you definitely want to take a 6th place in this regard. This seed definitely not as friendly as the first seed was. Where really the only thing that was out of place was the flute at Zora Ledge.
It was very weird for first place to finish during the crystal cutscene of GT. My goal in all these qualifiers is just hit GT before the first place finish. So crystal cutscene, I'll take it. But especially in a qualifier with like 94 people, I think it is, to have first place finish during the crystal cutscene and to still finish sixth, it's kind of bizarre. There
Yeah,
was a
because
big distance between first place and my finish.
yeah, because you expect at that point in time that the finishers behind that are just going to start rattling off one after another after another. Now, so I do want to talk to Jet here over here, who made a very, very good time-saving play to have picked up the bombos off the hobo and then go into Ice Palace without checking the Ice Rod Cave, which kind of put you into go mode once you found that bow in there.
Wait, so I have a question.
I have an answer.
Where was Flippers?
Ice Rod Cave.
Oh my gosh, that was in the beginning of the game then.
In a Spear 1 location. And yet you current jump your way over to the flute, and then you got the fake flippers
That
over
I
to
did.
Hobo for the bombos, and then into Ice Palace for your go mode.
So, okay, that
must have been nuts for commentary because I did Ice Rod Cave very late as well.
So I actually thought this was an Ag required C when I got Flute on Pyramid, and I was trying to think like, well, what else did I skip? By that point I sort of discounted Ice Rod Cave as having anything important because I'm like, I guess like if it is, I'm in big trouble, and just keep following everything else. Like we got Flute that eventually led to Hammer and everything. So it's like just keep following it. We're doing stuff, do dungeons. We'll see what we get. And I got goat mode without Flipper.
I do want to point out that this was an interesting beginning of this run for you two. How Jet, you had a 3 crystal lead on P-Train before P-Train started to scoop up some crystals because P-Train didn't want to finish off Thieves Town without the hammer, which turned out to be not necessarily a big deal because of the fact that the key layout, well, we don't know what the key layout was, but the item layout was that you didn't need the hammer to get all 4. And then you also finished off Desert in your first trip in, which P-Train was able to save a little bit of time because he had silvers by the time he was up against the Lamos while you're doing it with Fighter Sword. But it was just interesting, the route divergence for you two, just to have you both in Ice Palace at the same time for that go mode.
I was on the fence for doing Desert when I was first there. If there was an item on a torch that was required, I would have left immediately, save and quit. But it wasn't, we got Moon Pearl. Then I'm like, when am I going to come back? Swamp isn't required, so there's no guarantee I will even get Mirror. So I'm like, I should just do this while I'm here, even though it's going to take a little bit of time. It actually wasn't even that bad, though. The Sword Lamo, I don't know how many cycles I got, but it didn't seem that bad.
If I had bombs, I would have committed, but I was also low on bombs, so I couldn't, use that to help me out. I actually was planning on routing Mini Moldorm, like still skipping Ice Rod Cave, or at least delaying it. But my South Shore route was going to be Mini Moldorm to Dam to Agena. I found the book, and I was like, oh, okay, well let's do Agena too, or let's do Desert too. But I had the glove, then I found Lamp, and I was like, well shoot, I'm a melee weapon from doing Landmo. Let's do Escape and maybe even Eastern, try to get that melee weapon so that if Landmo has an item, I can do it.
Sound like you got your Pearl pretty early then, because I ended up doing like Eastern, because I did the South route, although I skipped Ice Rock Cave, of course. And I did Eastern, and then I did Escape, and then I finally went to Desert.
Yeah, I didn't do Eastern or Saha's Closet, so that's all I skipped really. Which in the early game without the boots, that is a pretty huge time save.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
a
both
point
wound up doing a sequence break to get those boots out of Harmless Hellway.
That was such a weird call for me because it's like I need hammer and a bow, but also Tempered Sword would have been nice. I don't know what the Meyer medallion is. Maybe it's tucked away in the back of Pod. There's a number of things that could have been back there that may not be what I need, but I would really appreciate. So it felt weird to stay. And when I found boots, I was like, all right, well at least I got something. But once I found like where the bow and hammer was, I'm like, man, if you could have single dipped this, it may not have even been worth the boots. But then of course, seeing where Tempered Sword was, boots absolutely paid off this seed.
Well, there was another location Sword could have been. The last sword. Although I don't think we got a 20 drop, did we? So
we
Yeah,
did get a
one
20
was in
drum from
Compass
Pete
Room.
Train. Compass Room GT.
okay. So that could have worked out that way. Yeah, I stayed just because I was hoping for like bombos. I knew Bo couldn't be there, of course. I didn't know where flippers were, so it could have been flippers in there in my mind.
Exactly. Exactly. We do need to wrap things up because we got a Zelda 1 randomizer race beginning in about 5 minutes from now. But I'm going to turn to StarX for a couple more questions.
Not as much a question as you guys mentioned, Jet, your Eastern Palace dip, and we were talking about it with Rick, and that's pretty much what the difference came up to, even that late in the seed, that Eastern dip.
Yeah, there was absolutely nothing there. I don't even know if I got a piece of heart. I think I got like 20 rupees or something. I don't even remember. It was just such a waste of time.
Well, that plays always like feast or famine, right? Because if you don't do Pendant Eastern like early, when do you do it? Especially in this seed.
Well,
Because
yeah,
by the time I
did it
hit
early.
Pod, like Fluke gave me Meyer access. Like I dove Pod, but there was no way I was going to do Pendant Eastern over Meyer. So and I think I even had well, Hammer gave me Turtle Rock access, but that was still I was in the Pod Eastern area before I got that. But yeah, I feel like Pendant Eastern is, if you don't do it in Sphere 1, it's very rare that you get back there before it's the last location.
I definitely don't regret the choice, even though it ultimately had me lose the restream race. But I mean, with 5 items, and my only other choice at that point was Desert, which I wasn't feeling great about because I wasn't sure I'd be able to beat it at the time. I think it was an okay choice.
All right, let's go ahead and start wrapping things up. Once again, GG's to both P-Train and Jet082. Be sure to follow them both. Very, very long-term runners here in the community and very knowledgeable in exactly what they did. And GG's to both of them on their 6th as well as 9th place finishes here in the overall race of 94 runners in qualifier number 2. All right, with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up. So I'm going to let StarX say the final word of this one here, but let's go ahead and say the best thanks here to SaverUX for doing the tracking for this, and once again for our runners Jet082 and P-Train. Thank you very much for joining us here on this restream, letting us be able to showcase both of your talents here in this qualifier. All right, StarX, I'm Adirondack Rick saying thank you for joining us. Zelda 1 Randomizer coming up next. You have the final word.
I mean, GG to everyone, GG to every racer, and still plenty more qualifiers to come. So join us. It was Wednesday, and through all other qualifiers for the tourney.